If you're going to have your ovaries removed, you're not planning to bury a child, right? Since you're no longer needed, can you divorce me? My husband Michael confronted me with divorce papers. What are you talking about? I won't forgive you if this is a joke, in such a situation. Just a few days ago, I was rushed to the hospital with sudden abdominal pain. The diagnosis suggested the possibility of ovarian cancer, and I was admitted for surgery the following day. This is no joke. I've been putting up with this until now. No, the real endurance had been mine. Living with the in-laws and their harassment. Why should I be the one presented with a divorce petition? On the day before my surgery, anger, sadness, despair, a mix of emotions overwhelmed me as I covered my face. Then, to add insult to injury, I heard the voices of the in-laws, Kevin and Stella. A barren woman should quietly step aside. It's shameful for a woman of your age to cling to a younger husband. These 3 years have been a waste of time for Michael. Please disappear from our lives quickly. Their words cut deep into my heart. Fighting back tears, I managed to steady my trembling right hand with my left and furiously signed my name. All right, this makes us complete strangers. With that, Michael pocketed the divorce papers. As he was leaving, Michael said, "Actually, there's a nice girl at work lately. She's young, cute, and healthy. Ah, it was right not to take the ugly genes from an old hag." I was speechless at his cruel words. Little did I know, meeting Michael again 3 years later would turn out to be quite unexpected. My name is Ava. I married Michael, who is 2 years younger, 2 years ago. We met at work when I was 38, and after his persistent pursuit, we got married. Having given up on marriage, I initially refused his advances. There are plenty of younger women out there. I like someone independent and calm like Ava. I might not be able to have children at 38. I don't want children, I want to be with you, Ava. Despite my objections, Michael insisted I was the only one for him, and I set just one condition for our marriage. Just promise me one thing. I'm not obsessed with having children due to my age. Let's not force ourselves to have children. Michael agreed to this condition, and we got married. Michael, who had always lived with his parents, insisted on continuing to do so after our marriage. I'm an only child, and I'll have to take care of my parents eventually. Why not live with my parents from the start? Though living with strangers at this age was daunting, I consented to live with his parents, Kevin and Stella, out of gratitude for marrying a leftover like me. However, I quickly realized this decision was a mistake. Ava will need you to do the shopping, cooking, dishwashing, garbage disposal, and bathroom cleaning. Why was I the only one expected to do so much when there were 4 adults living in the house? I felt uneasy from the start but couldn't voice my concerns. They seemed to think of me as a housekeeper. Ava, I want to eat Odin today. Ava, the entrance is getting dirty, please clean it. Ava, iron my shirts. What kind of life had the 3 of them been leading before I arrived? The in-laws' house wasn't dirty, so someone must have been doing the housework until I came. This realization only added to my frustration. Furthermore, the in-laws were overjoyed at the prospect of their only son getting married and expected a grandchild right away. You're nearly 40, you should start infertility treatments soon. No, we're fine without children. What are you saying? There's no point in marrying if you're not going to have children. The in-laws couldn't understand our choice not to have children. Well, we're not young anymore, so we decided not to be too nervous about having children, Michael said, trying to convince his parents at first. But the in-laws were persistent. No matter how much Michael tried to persuade them, the question of when we were going to have a grandchild would resurface after a few days. One day, Michael came into the room, red-faced.
Mom said I should get checked at the hospital because it might be my fault you're not getting pregnant.
Feeling wounded in his male pride, Michael started taking it out on me. It's not my fault, is it? Michael is just hurting himself. Of course, I didn't say it out loud, but my dissatisfaction grew day by day.
We're proving it's your fault we can't have kids. We're going to the doctor.
Eventually, Michael said something like that. However, I had no intention of undergoing fertility treatments, so naturally, I ignored what he said and lied about being too busy with work to escape from my in-laws' house. I'm home. Listen, Mom. The only saving grace was that my parents' house was near my office. Before going home, I'd stop by my parents' house to vent my frustrations. There, my loving parents, Thomas and Olivia, who had already retired and were enjoying their later years, were waiting for me. I wonder how they felt about their daughter, who got married close to 40, exploding with complaints about her in-laws and husband so soon after getting married. At first, I felt sorry for my parents, but they listened to my complaints as if they were a snack to accompany their drinks.
Ava, what's wrong today? We got some nice liquor from the neighbor, let's drink together.
Perhaps it was because my parents took it so lightly that I was able to complain. Why does everyone think marriage equals children? Plus, pregnancy and childbirth are all tough on women. And then to have the husband's parents complain.
People are just set in their ways. Especially as they get older. I'm told I've softened with age.
Dad has mellowed with age, hasn't he? Maybe Michael will turn out like Dad? With time, this situation will probably become a laughing matter. Just like this, my parents always encouraged me. Having my parents on my side always gave me strength, and I was somehow able to continue my marriage. Then one day, on my way home from work, I suddenly felt severe pain in my lower abdomen. What's this pain? Cold sweat broke out due to the pain, and I couldn't stand, sitting down on the sidewalk. I tried to search for my mobile phone to call for help, but my hands were shaking so much from the pain that I couldn't properly search for it. Fortunately, a passerby noticed and called an ambulance for me. At the hospital, after various tests, I was told there was a possibility of ovarian cancer.
Could you contact your family immediately?
Asked by the nurse, I called Michael. It was past 7 p.m., and Michael should have been home, but he didn't answer the phone no matter how many times I tried. Reluctantly, I called Mom.
I'll be there right away. You'll be okay, Ava.
Mom encouraged me and soon arrived at the hospital with Dad. Tears streamed down my face the moment I saw my parents. I wasn't strong enough to face cancer alone after turning 40. Mom gently stroked my back. With my parents, I listened to the doctor about my condition. The right ovary is highly likely to be cancerous. We recommend the removal of both ovaries and the uterus.
Does that mean I won't be able to get pregnant?
Yes. Are you hoping to get pregnant, Ava? I hesitated. Honestly, at 41, I wasn't that desperate to have children. But, given the pressure for children from the in-laws and Michael, I felt a moment of resistance to making my body unable to bear children.
Is there another treatment option if I wanted to get pregnant?
I asked timidly. You have to think about your body first. My parents looked worried. The doctor quietly said to me, there are options, but further tests are needed to see if they're applicable to Ava. My parents were probably surprised I was still concerned about getting pregnant. I was surprised myself. I couldn't quite express my feelings, but the thought of having both of my ovaries and my uterus removed without ever having had children made me feel indescribably empty. Maybe if I don't give up and keep trying, Michael, Kevin, Stella might change their minds about me. That thought crossed my mind. I can't completely give up on getting pregnant. Can you leave one ovary? The doctor looked into my eyes and nodded. I understand how you feel, Ava. However, depending on the progress, there might still be a need to remove everything. As a result of the discussion with the doctor, surgery to remove my right ovary, the site of the tumor, was scheduled for 5 days later. If the tumor was confined to the right ovary, we would see how it goes with the addition of chemotherapy. If there's any spread, you must give up on pregnancy for good, the doctor emphasized, and I nodded firmly. Thankfully, my parents quietly supported me without saying anything about my decision. Mom came to the hospital every day, taking care of me when I was feeling down. Did Michael get in touch? No. He doesn't answer the phone, and he hasn't responded to my messages about being hospitalized. I don't understand what's going on with Michael. My parents were silent, seemingly not having realized how much their daughter's marriage had deteriorated.
Maybe he's just busy. Dad and Mom have plenty of time, so don't worry about things like laundry. Oh, I'll buy your favorite pears later.
Mom tried to keep my spirits up by being cheerfully supportive. I was deeply moved by my parents' warmth. I decided to do my best in the surgery for my parents as well. Just then, Michael and the in-laws entered my hospital room. It was the day before the surgery. I glared at the three of them.
Why are you ignoring my calls and messages?
Michael casually responded. Seems like you've been through a lot. Good job. Expecting him to apologize for not contacting me, I was speechless. Why can he speak so indifferently about his wife undergoing surgery? Anger welled up inside me, and I glared at them even more. Seeing my reaction, the three of them exchanged some words, then looked at me with a disdainful smile.
Leave! I don't want to see your faces!
Unable to hold back, I yelled at them, forgetting we were in a hospital. Then Michael walked up to me and thrust a piece of paper at me. If you're going to have your ovaries removed, you can't have kids, right? Since you're useless to me now, will you divorce me? The paper Michael thrust at me was a divorce petition.
What are you talking about? I won't forgive you for joking about this in such a situation.
It's no joke. I've been putting up with this until now. No, I've been the one putting up with everything. Why should I be the one presented with a divorce petition? On the day before my surgery, anger, sadness, despair, a mix of emotions overwhelmed me as I covered my face. Then, to add insult to injury, the in-laws spoke up. A barren woman should quietly step aside.
It's shameful for a woman of your age to cling to a younger husband. These 3 years have been a waste of Michael's time. Please disappear from our sight quickly.
Their words cut deep into my heart. Choosing a treatment that left open the possibility of pregnancy for their sake now seemed foolish. What is this treatment? Stunned, Michael left the divorce petition and a pen on the bedside table. Just sign your name, and it's all done. Be thankful I'm handling this for you. Saying so, Michael forced a pen into my right hand. I wasn't opposed to divorcing per se. In fact, I couldn't bear the thought of living with the in-laws and enduring their snide remarks until we had a child. But I had endured their tyranny for these 3 years. I endured it because they were family. They must have seen me only as a childbearing machine. The resentment towards the three who didn't offer support but instead presented me with divorce while I was facing surgery was immense. I bit my lip, holding back tears, and with trembling hands supported by my left, I wrote my name.
All right, this makes us complete strangers.
With that, Michael pocketed the divorce petition. The three of them left the room with satisfied looks. At the last moment, Michael turned back and said,
Actually, there's a nice young girl at work. She's young, cute, and healthy. She doesn't have a single thing in common with you. Ah, I was right not to inherit ugly genes from an old hag.
Glaring at Michael, he said, "Good thing I divorced the old hag." And left with a smirk. The only sound in the quiet room was my sniffles. Michael and his family had pushed me, already overwhelmed by illness and fear, further down into despair. I buried my face in the blanket and cried. After some time, there was a knock at the door. I hurriedly covered my face with the blanket and pretended to be asleep. "Ava, you're sleeping, huh? I peeled some pears for you, eat them later." The voice belonged to Mom, who always entered without knocking. She quietly came in and placed a container of pears on the table. "I'll move all your stuff to our house today. After you're discharged, maybe you can help with the laundry. Oh, and Dad has started cooking. Look forward to Dad's cooking. I'll come back tomorrow morning." As Mom gently stroked the top of my head peeking out from the blanket, she quickly left the hospital room. It seemed like she knew everything without needing to say a word. Perhaps she had overheard the divorce conversation with Michael and the others outside the room. Feeling the infinite kindness and warmth of Mom, I found myself tearing up again. After a good cry, I lifted my face. The pear was cut into bite-sized pieces for easy eating. "Mom, thank you." As I bit into the pear, the smiling faces of my parents came to mind. I need to get better soon to repay Dad and Mom. I decided to work hard on my treatment, with the goal of giving my parents peace of mind. The next day, I underwent surgery to remove my right ovary. It turned out to be cancerous as feared, but fortunately, the left ovary was normal. Next, I would undergo chemotherapy to target the unseen cells. The first round of chemotherapy was tough due to the medication not agreeing with me and the strong side effects. I couldn't eat anything, and as my hair fell out, I could see myself getting thinner. But my parents were always there to encourage me.
"Yesterday, we saw the meteor shower you like. Dad found 5 shooting stars. We made wishes, so you're definitely going to get better."
Thinking about Dad, who normally wouldn't care about shooting stars, getting up in the middle of the night to watch the sky, filled me with a sense of his love and the warmth of family. Thanks to them, I was able to keep a strong resolve to fight for their sake. My hospital stay ended after 6 months, and I switched to outpatient treatment.
If nobody uses it, it just collects dust. It's good that Ava is coming back.
My parents didn't ask about the divorce. They simply brought me home as if it was the most natural thing. I couldn't return to society immediately and spent some time recuperating at home. Supported by my parents, I gradually began to recover my former self. And then, the second year after my surgery began. Before I got sick, I always lazed around on holidays, but after experiencing cancer, I made sure to live a regular, healthy life.
Ah, that was a good walk.
As I finished my usual morning walk and was about to enter the house, the mailman arrived and handed me a delivery. It was a letter with a baby's photo attached. The name on it was surprisingly Michael's. While I was fighting my illness, the man who left me had found happiness and even had the child his in-laws wished for. I wondered what he intended by letting me know this fact. Seeing the letter didn't make me feel good, but Michael was already a stranger to me. There was no need to waste my nerves on a stranger. I decided to move on. I knew my parents would be upset if they found the New Year's card. So as soon as I entered the house, I tore it up and threw it in the trash, making sure they would never know. I then managed to return to work. Since my parents' house was close to the company, I could commute without overexerting myself.
How was the healthy sandwich?
It was delicious. Thank you as always. Every day, Dad prepared a nutritionally balanced sandwich for me. This touched since this was something he had never done when I lived at home.
Dad, you're really good at cooking. Did you always know how to cook?
I whispered to Mom, who shook her head.
Dad got excited about making Ava sandwiches. He improved his cooking skills over the last few months.
Watching Dad happily make sandwiches while humming, I could tell he was truly happy to see me well. Parents always give their children unconditional love, no matter their age. I wished I could be a parent who gives unconditional love like them. That thought made me smile. Having one ovary left didn't matter since I was still single. But I needed to stay healthy for my parents. And I promised myself to repay them one day. I have decided once again. Then, one day, Michael and the in-laws suddenly appeared in front of me. They were waiting for me to return from work in front of my parents' house.
Ava.
Michael murmured my name as they all apologized profusely without caring about the onlookers.
I was wrong. I want to start over.
What is he talking about now? Especially since Michael already had a child. I was furious with Michael for his irresponsibility and the in-laws who followed him like fish droppings, apologizing together. As I glared at them silently, Michael began to explain.
I was deceived.
According to Michael, he married the young woman from his workplace right after divorcing me. Because she was already pregnant. Knowing now that he had cheated on me while we were still married made me upset, even after all this time. Then, just like the letter said, they had a son and were supposedly living a happy life until it was discovered that Michael's current wife was having an affair with another man. Michael became suspicious when she always stepped outside to take calls and never let her mobile phone out of her sight. He decided to hire a detective, and that's when he found out. Even more shocking was that the son he believed was his turned out to be the child of his wife's lover. When confronted, his wife casually admitted to the affair and the truth about the child. Laughing, she said,
Obviously, I'd choose his genes over yours. Who would want the genes of an ugly old man like you? That sounds familiar.
I muttered, and Michael hung his head.
I really am sorry. I've only just realized how terribly we treated you.
Following Michael's lead, the in-laws also apologized. We won't say anything about the child anymore. Can't we start over? Dad and Mom are sorry, too. What convenient people they are. After everything they did, I couldn't understand how they had the nerve to appear before me so casually, and I didn't feel like talking to them. Then, alerted by the commotion at the entrance, a man and my parents came out of the house at just the right moment. Guests? What are you doing here? Mom raised her voice upon seeing Michael and the others apologizing in front of me. The man behind my parents was taken aback by Mom's reaction, but then quickly came to my side.
Please stay away from my wife.
Then, my new husband Brian stood protectively in front of me, facing Michael and the others. Michael and his party were dumbfounded.
My wife? What do you mean, Ava? This is a joke, right? Why would you think it's a joke?
I retorted, seizing the moment to fight back. Sorry, but I'm married to him now.
Thanks to you insisting on that divorce, I found someone who loves me for who I am, not as a childbearing machine.
I wrapped my arm around the man beside me to show him off to Michael and the others. He was a colleague from work who had taken on my responsibilities while I was off sick. After returning to work, he helped me manage my workload so I wouldn't overdo it, and gradually, we spent more and more time together.
Being with Ava makes me realize the small joys in life. Will you marry me?
He proposed, accepting me for who I am, and we got married 6 months ago.
Wait, your stomach, are you pregnant?
At that moment, Michael's mother screamed upon noticing my noticeably larger abdomen. Michael looked at my stomach and frowned deeply at me.
You said you were getting your ovaries removed. Did you lie to me? How low can you get, lying like that? Enjoy playing the victim?
The in-laws joined in, berating me just like before.
Weren't you the ones who demanded a divorce without listening to my side? You wanted children so much, I decided to keep one ovary just in case there was a chance of pregnancy, but you never listened, did you?
Anger from the past surged within me. Feeling my rage, he stroked my back to calm me down.
My wife has endured harsh chemotherapy and is still fighting hard with the remaining ovary. Please, never come near my precious wife again. If you break this promise, we will take legal action.
His firm stance left them with nothing to say, and they backed off.
We thought we'd do you a favor by offering to keep you as a housekeeper since you're alone. Well, suffer through your high-risk pregnancy then.
Michael left with a parting shot, retreating with the in-laws. My parents rushed over to me. Ava, are you all right?
I swear. If they show up again, they won't get off so easily.
My parents, who had seen me through the tough times, were filled with anger. I will always protect you, so please don't worry. His strong words finally eased me and my parents. Later, Mom heard that Michael had also made his new wife live with the in-laws, just like me. I had thought that Michael and his family were completely deceived by his new wife, but it turns out that wasn't entirely the case. They had disregarded me because I couldn't get pregnant, or so they believed. So, I imagined Michael must have been very kind to his pregnant new wife, but it seems that wasn't the case at all. They didn't take care of her despite her pregnancy, making her do household chores and carry heavy things without concern. Some neighbors, seeing her buying groceries for a family of 4 with her large belly, were so worried they helped carry her bags. Of course, the woman who cheated with Michael and bore the child of her affair was also at fault. But no one could make her feel guilty given how much Michael and his parents exploited her. Michael and his parents made their marriage partners live with them as housekeepers twice, only to divorce them shortly after. This bad reputation spread in the neighborhood, and nobody wanted to associate with Michael's family anymore. Still, they continued looking for a wife to take care of them, but as soon as Michael brought a woman home, neighbors would warn her about their reputation. Thanks to this, no woman became their victim again, and the 3 of them now live a meager life under the strange gazes of the neighborhood.
Was their house always full of trash before Ava married in?
No, they kept it fairly clean. I guess without a wife, Stella must manage the household well.
I see.
Mom nodded, understanding. Lately, Stella hasn't been well, probably due to her age. While Michael works, he has to take care of Stella, but with just the 2 men, the house has recently become neglected.
They only have themselves to blame. They have to figure it out as a family of 3, blood-related.
They need to deeply reflect on how they've mistreated their marriage partners.
Mom, I'm home.
Just then, my daughter and husband returned.
Welcome back, we've been waiting. Let's play with Grandma.
Seeing Mom, my daughter rushed into her arms with the brightest smile. My daughter turned 2 this year. When she was born, my husband and parents cried and thanked me. There were times I doubted why I chose to keep one ovary for treatment, feeling guilted towards my quietly supportive parents. But now, I have no regrets. Because I have such a wonderful family. After giving birth, our family of 3 started living in an apartment close to my parents' house. My parents would come over with extra dishes they made or vegetables they received, always finding reasons to visit. Though I've resigned myself to the fact that having another child at my age is unlikely, my daughter never feels lonely because my parents are always there to play with her, which has been a great help to me.
Grandma's joining us for dinner, right? Is that okay, Ava?
Of course, invite Dad too.
Thank you. Dad said he's bringing some pears from the fridge.
Our ordinary, warm conversations filled the air. Harassment, divorce, illness. I've hit rock bottom at times, but thanks to my parents and my current husband, I'm living happily. And my daughter, who came into my life when I had almost given up on pouring unconditional love like Dad and Mom, has made my life shine brighter.
Mom, here, take this.
My daughter placed an acorn she picked up in the park into my palm.
Wow, thank you. I'll treasure it.
I hugged my daughter. Together as a family, caring for each other, we want to continue cherishing the small joys of life. I really need to talk to Lynn about something. Emily, my daughter-in-law, seems to hesitate for a moment, taking a deep breath. But then, as if she's made up her mind, she starts to speak with determination. I'm sorry, but I just can't do it anymore. I can't afford to pay $3,000 every month for Brian's care. It's just too much for me. She said this through tears. I couldn't understand what Emily was talking about. Paying $3,000 a month for care? What are you talking about? Brian passed away 8 years ago. You should know that.
What? But Ridley said we needed money for the care. I wasn't told he passed away. I don't understand what's happening.
Emily seemed genuinely unaware. Even I am struggling to grasp the situation, but it's an undeniable fact that my husband Brian has passed away.
I really wasn't told about his passing. It's the truth.
Emily was desperately trying to make her case. Based on Emily's behavior up until now, I was convinced she wasn't lying, and I knew she wasn't the type to make up such a story.
About 6 months ago, Ridley came to me saying we needed money for Brian's care. He said our parents had sent us a lot of money during our student days, and now it was his turn to send money.
Hearing Emily's frail voice, I felt a rage like never before. I could easily imagine how troubled Emily had been. I was convinced that my son Ridley was lying. Given the circumstances, there was no doubt about it. I could forgive a lot, but not telling his wife about Brian's death and asking her for money was unforgivable. I had to make Ridley reflect on his actions. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to say to Brian in heaven. I made up my mind and approached Emily with a proposal.
Listen, we're going to gather evidence of Ridley's wrongdoing together. We'll make sure he can't make any excuses. Then, we'll confront him with it.
My name is Lynn. After graduating from nursing school, I started working at a state public hospital. The job was tough, but it's where I had a fateful encounter with Brian. He initially came to my hospital as a patient, and I was assigned to be his nurse. During his care, he shared many stories with me. I was somewhat intrigued by him, so I often engaged in our conversations. The conversations we shared during those tough days at work became my greatest joy. And then, when he was about to be discharged, he gave me his contact information. Let's get in touch if you'd like. I didn't hesitate to contact him immediately. And so, we started dating officially. I later learned that he had fallen for me at first sight, and was desperately trying to get my attention by striking up conversations. I came to deeply love him for that. Our relationship continued without any major fights because he was such a kind person. And eventually, we got married. Even after marriage, my relationship with Brian was just fine. And a few years later, our son Ridley was born. From that time, Brian became busy with work and was rarely at home. But when the family was together, we would happily go out to eat or travel. Several more years passed, and Ridley went on to college. His college was quite far from home, reachable only by airplane. I felt a sense of vulnerability sending my son so far away, but convinced myself it was for his future. Ridley would come home during long holidays, and he seemed even brighter than before, which reassured me. However, being a STEM college, the expenses seemed to be quite high. Ridley often asked me to send him money. "Mom, I'm sorry, but I'm short on money this month. Can you send me some?" "Didn't I just send you some recently? What are you spending all this money on?" "It's for school stuff. The books they require us to buy are all specialized and really expensive. Plus, the equipment and materials for research cost quite a bit too." Ridley pleaded desperately. "And there's also living expenses. It's really tough, even with the part-time job. I can't keep up," Ridley said, sounding almost on the verge of tears. Hearing his voice made my heart ache. I wondered how anxious Ridley must be, living so far from home. Our own financial situation wasn't easy, but I felt compelled to help no matter what. "Okay, I understand. I'll send it by the end of this week, so don't worry."
Thank you, Mom.
Ridley's voice brightened up upon hearing my response, filling me with an indescribable joy. This exchange continued until Ridley graduated from college. After graduation, Ridley successfully found a job in a company in the city. I wished he could come back to his hometown, but it couldn't be helped. The university was a plane ride away, but now he was just a long train ride away. It was somewhat closer, so I had to be content with that. However, Ridley became busier with work and visited home even less. "Ridley, when will you come home next? Let me know when you decided." "Sorry, Mom. Work's been so hectic, I don't see myself coming home anytime soon. It's like I hardly have any days off, and sometimes my boss calls me in unexpectedly. So, I really can't afford to come home." It sounds tough. It's good to work hard, but don't overdo it. If you break down, it's all for nothing. Make sure to reach out if things get too hard.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Ridley said this and quickly hung up the phone. His somewhat indifferent attitude pained me. But I told myself it couldn't be helped. Ridley was a grown adult, after all. It was probably overbearing for me to say too much now. I tried to suppress my loneliness and convinced myself of this. I also made a point not to call Ridley. I didn't want to interrupt his work. For a while, we didn't communicate. But then, one day, Ridley called me out of the blue.
"Lynn, it's been a while. Is now a good time?" "It's fine." "What's going on?" "Well, I've decided to get married." "What? What do you mean?" "I happened to meet someone and we got along well. So, we decided to get married. I've already met her parents. We'll be coming home soon to introduce her to you." "I see. I'll be looking forward to it."
I said this and hung up the phone. Ridley was getting married. And just the thought made my heart flutter. I wondered what kind of woman she could be. Would I be able to see my grandchildren? All sorts of thoughts raced through my mind. I was so happy that I marked the calendar with a big sign. And then the day finally came. Ridley's girlfriend, named Emily, was a quiet, beautiful, and kind-hearted woman with a sharp mind. I liked her immediately. She seemed perfect for Ridley. There was no reason to oppose their marriage, and things moved quickly. Ridley and Emily were soon happily married. After the wedding, Emily would help me with my work whenever Ridley was home. It seemed that Emily thought highly of me too, and there was no sign of any mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict. However, as time passed, Ridley became busier and had almost no time to come home. Even though we would occasionally talk on the phone, those calls became rare. I was lonely, but I guessed young people preferred spending time with each other. Out of consideration for Ridley and his wife, I decided not to call unless it was an emergency. After that, we hardly communicated. There was no interaction after they called to wish me a happy birthday, and time passed by. But a year later, Emily suddenly called. "Lynn, it's been a while." Emily spoke in a heavy, somber tone. I was concerned by her demeanor, but chose not to press the issue. "Oh, Emily, it's been a while. How's Ridley doing?" "Yes, he's fine. But there's something I just have to tell you." "Something you have to say? What happened?" Emily seemed to hesitate for a moment, taking a deep breath. But then, as if she had made up her mind, she began to speak earnestly. "I'm sorry, but I just can't do it anymore. I can't afford to pay $3,000 every month for Brian's care. It's just too much for me." Emily said this through tears. I couldn't grasp what Emily was saying.
$3,000 a month for care? What are you talking about? Please don't joke about this. But how can there be care expenses? Brian passed away 8 years ago. You should know that, shouldn't you? What? But Ridley told me we needed money for care. I haven't heard anything about him passing away. What's going on here? I'm completely lost." Emily seemed genuinely unaware. I was having trouble understanding the situation myself. But there's no denying the fact that Brian has passed away. "Listen, Emily, Brian passed away 8 years ago due to his illness worsening. He was indeed in need of care before that." I said this carefully, trying not to upset Emily. I did tell Ridley about how tough Brian's care was. But I never asked for money. I can't believe it. I wasn't told anything about his passing. It's true. Emily pleaded desperately. I was convinced she wasn't lying, based on her behavior up to now. I knew she wasn't the type to say such things. I recalled the time when Brian passed away and explained it to Emily in as much detail as possible. When Brian was critically ill, and it was clear he was in danger, I contacted Ridley. He came home then. Emily gasped over the phone. She might not have known even that. But you didn't come. I heard you were busy with an overseas business trip and couldn't possibly come back here, I said, feeling a pang in my heart. But at that time, I was so preoccupied with Brian that I didn't have the capacity to consider Emily's situation. Overseas business trip? I'm an office worker. I don't go on trips abroad. In fact, I've never been on a business trip, Emily exclaimed, seemingly shocked. Why would Ridley say such a thing? Where did all the care money I've been paying go? Emily was clearly shaken over the phone. But after a while, she began to explain the situation slowly. This started about 6 months ago. Ridley came to me saying we needed money for Brian's care. He mentioned how our parents sent us money during our student days, and now it was his turn to send money. Hearing Emily's frail voice, I felt an unprecedented wave of anger. So, I initially paid willingly. But the amount kept increasing, and now it's $3,000 a month. Emily sighed deeply after saying that. And I could easily imagine how much she had been struggling. I've been dipping into my savings to make the payments, but honestly, I've reached my limit. That's why I called. Hearing Emily's words, I was convinced that Ridley was lying. The situation made it clear. Forgiving minor things is one thing,
but not telling his wife about Brian's death and asking for money is unforgivable. If this demand escalates, it could even lead to a criminal case. I must make Ridley reflect on his actions. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to say to Brian in heaven. I resolved to do something and approached Emily with a suggestion.
Emily, I believe you. It's clear Ridley is lying.
Is that so? I was foolish. If only I had spoken to you sooner, this wouldn't have happened.
No, it's not your fault. But we can't let this go. Listen, let's gather evidence of Ridley's wrongdoing together. We'll collect enough so he can't make any excuses, and then we'll confront him with it.
Understood. What should I do?
Well, Emily, I'd like you to gather any evidence you can find at home. Do you have a study or something? There should be receipts and documents there. I'll hire a detective agency to investigate Ridley's background. There's probably more to this.
Got it. I'll carefully collect evidence without being noticed and look through messages to see if there's any information about Ridley. I'll contact you if I find anything. Emily said this and then hung up the phone. At first, she was unsettled, but now, there wasn't a trace of that to be seen. With that attitude, he's bound to thoroughly search for evidence. I started looking online for a detective agency and immediately requested an investigation into Ridley's background. Several weeks later, I visited Ridley's house. I had asked Emily about Ridley's day off in advance. Guided by Emily, I headed towards the living room. Unaware of anything, Ridley was relaxing in the living room. He was surprised to see me enter.
What? Mom, what brings you here all of a sudden? You could have let me know you were coming.
Sorry for not telling you in advance. I just needed to talk to you about something.
I see. But I have to step out for a bit. Emily will fill you in on the details.
It seemed Ridley sensed something was off. He suddenly got up in a hurry, looking to leave the scene.
Sit down.
I yelled at Ridley. He looked surprised and flustered. Emily, with a blank expression, went over to Ridley and made him sit on the sofa. Ridley looked back and forth between me and Emily, his face clearly showing his distress.
You know, Ridley, I got a call from Emily the other day. She told me you've been making her pay $3,000 a month for Brian's care expenses.
Upon hearing this, Ridley's expression twisted, and he bit his lip, realizing his actions had been discovered.
But that's strange, isn't it? Because Brian is no longer with us. So, who exactly are these care expenses for? I'd like to hear it from you.
Ridley didn't answer right away. He looked down and scratched his head.
Not going to answer? Then let's change the question. Emily didn't know that Brian had passed away.
Emily looked down at Ridley with cold eyes.
You said she couldn't come because she was on a business trip abroad, right? But Emily has never been on a business trip, let alone abroad. What do you have to say about that?
Ridley remained silent, still looking down.
Say something.
I shouted even louder than before. I was furious at Ridley for choosing to remain silent at such a time. Emily's lips were pressed tightly together as she glared at Ridley. Ridley sighed deeply and rubbed his face with his hands. Listen, we already know you've been lying. We've gathered plenty of evidence to prove it. So, staying silent now is pointless. I said this in a more admonishing tone. Scolding him wouldn't make him reflect. I wanted him to understand why what he did was wrong. Now, about the $3,000 you conned out of Emily. What did you use it for? Tell me the truth. Ridley was silent for a while, but eventually, he began to speak weakly. I wanted to use that money to start a business. My current job is so tough. I thought starting my own business would increase my income and allow me to work more freely. Ridley murmured, clearly shaken. I wanted to immediately rebut, but I decided to let him finish speaking first. I know I did something wrong to you guys. But I thought you'd be against it if I told you the truth, so I couldn't bring myself to say it. I'm really sorry. After saying this, Ridley got up from the sofa and apologized. Well, I appreciate your honesty. Look at me, I said gently. Ridley, seemingly relieved, looked up, but he was met with documents and photos I dropped in front of him. They were the detective's report and documents Emily had found at home. Upon seeing them, Ridley's face turned pale. It seems you've been borrowing money from various places since your college days. And despite that, you've been splurging on girls at bars. You've been living quite lavishly, haven't you? And that's not all. You even took out loans in my name. Emily said this and shoved the documents in Ridley's face. I had no idea about any of this. You're dissatisfied with just $3,000 a month? Am I just someone convenient for you to get money from? Say something. Emily seemed to have reached her limit, grabbing Ridley by the collar in frustration. Enough, Ridley. As I said earlier, we know all about your lies, and we have all the evidence we need. I stopped Emily and explained again to Ridley, who, frightened by Emily's scolding, listened quietly. We know how you've been spending your money and what your personal life is like. There's no use hiding anything now. Ridley groaned softly, ruffling his hair. But I continued undeterred. We want to hear everything from you. Understand? So, start talking. This time, Ridley seemed genuinely remorseful. He began to speak through tears. I'm sorry, truly sorry. It was all a lie. Tears fell from Ridley's eyes, forming puddles on the floor. Back in college, I asked for money not for textbooks, but because I wanted money to have fun. I didn't have a part-time job. I spent all the money on shopping and hanging out with friends. Hearing Ridley finally tell the truth brought me some relief. And what about after you started working? After I started working, I went to bars after work. I took a liking to one of the girls there and ended up spending a lot of money on her. If I didn't, she wouldn't pay me any attention. But you've been spending more than you earn, haven't you? How did you manage that? By the time I realized I couldn't borrow money in my name anymore. But I still had to pay back my debts. So, I started borrowing money in Emily's name. I secretly took her ID and completed the procedures online. Emily looked like she wanted to say something upon hearing this, but I gestured for her to wait. I had decided we would only interject after he had confessed everything. I had no other choice. But when that wasn't an option anymore, I lied about needing money for care expenses to get it from Emily. I'm really sorry. Ridley broke down in tears like a child after saying this. But the ones who truly deserved to cry were Emily and me. I exchanged a look with Emily and sighed deeply. Emily seemed to have lost the will to scold him any further at the sight of Ridley's pathetic state. After sobbing for a while, Ridley apologized again. I'm truly sorry. I deeply regret my actions and promise I won't do it again. I swear it right here. I'll definitely pay back the money. Please forgive me. Ridley apologized sincerely, but his words were hard to trust. He had been deceiving those close to him for so long. Even if we forgave him, it was almost certain he would just repeat his actions. Ridley, it's over. We can't trust anything you say. We never intended to forgive you. And this isn't the end. Be prepared. An hour later, the doorbell of the house rang. Emily went to answer it. Ridley watched her apprehensively. Led in by Emily, the newcomers were women. Upon seeing their faces, Ridley caught his breath. You recognize these women, Ridley? They're your ex-girlfriends. Don't pretend you've forgotten. You've been living off these women, haven't you? Emily glared at Ridley as she spoke coldly. Why? Why are all of you here? We found out you were living off these women thanks to Lynn's investigation. So I reached out to them, saying I wanted to apologize from the bottom of my heart. Upon seeing their faces, Ridley caught his breath. Despair appeared in Ridley's eyes. Then, word spread. Thanks to that, your ex-girlfriends have come together, wanting to support me. Please, express all the feelings you've been holding inside. Emily's words were the signal for the start. One by one, Ridley's ex-girlfriends began to reveal his misdeeds. Ridley's face turned red from the overwhelming revelations, enduring the embarrassment. I, too, felt a deep sense of shame listening to it all. Wondering where I went wrong in raising my son. And how he ended up in this situation. The exposure made me wish I could disappear from the sheer embarrassment. After the revelations, Emily placed divorce papers on the table. Ridley, I can't live with you anymore. Please sign these divorce papers right now. And write a promissory note to pay compensation and repay the loans you took out in my name. No, please, Emily, let's be rational about this. This isn't right. I'll truly change, so please reconsider. I'd be lost without you right now. Ridley pleaded pitifully, but his ex-girlfriends unanimously scolded him to get real. Not a single person in the room was on Ridley's side. Reluctantly, Ridley signed the divorce papers and wrote a promissory note and affidavit complying with Emily's demands. Afterward, Ridley, now in tears, turned to me, begging for help. Mom, I'm really sorry. This is my last selfish request. Please help me with the repayments. I know I've done wrong by lying, but I can't do this alone. Please. Lynn, you don't need to help him. Just leave him be. I looked into Ridley's eyes, reminiscing about the warmth of holding him for the first time. The warmth of holding Ridley for the first time, the joyful days spent with Brian and the three of us, the sense of vulnerability when sending Ridley off to college. It all comes back to me as if it were just yesterday. Despite his faults, he was still my son. All right, Ridley. No matter what you've done, you're my irreplaceable son. Ridley's eyes lit up with joy at my words. I don't believe I'm entirely blameless. Perhaps I made you feel lonely without realizing it. I was overwhelmed with remorse towards Ridley. So, I'll take responsibility too. I promise to take care of you until the end. Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much. Ridley held my hands, apologizing through his tears. Just then, the doorbell rang again, and Emily went to answer it. Several well-dressed, stout men entered the living room. Good afternoon. We are here following a request. Is this gentleman Ridley? One of the men confirmed in a low voice. Yes, that's him. We've finished our discussion, so please take him now. Understood. The men briefly responded, then lifted Ridley by his arms and made him stand. Caught off guard, Ridley screamed and resisted, but he was no match for the men's strength. Mom, who are these people?
What do you mean they're taking me? Stop. Let me go.
I do want to help you get back on your feet, but I'm getting older and that's becoming difficult. So, I consulted with the detective agency, and they recommended a good rehabilitation facility. I paused there. My heart was aching as if it were being torn apart. Ridley looked at me with tears in his eyes. With determination, I met his gaze and declared, "You're going there to be re-educated and fix your rotten self. This is my final act of sympathy for you."
This can't be happening. Let me go. Please, Emily, anyone, help me.
Ridley desperately pleaded for help, but Emily and his ex-girlfriends remained unmoved, watching him with cold eyes. "It's a safe place, not dangerous. You'll just have your daily life and work managed while living there. If you truly are sorry, you'll follow their guidance, won't you?"
No, I don't want this. I swear, I really won't do anything bad again. Please help me.
Ridley struggled as he was taken away. That's when I finally shed tears. I didn't want to do this. But the issue was too significant. If not rehabilitated now, Ridley could bring misery not only upon himself, but also upon many others. "I'm so sorry, Ridley." I apologized from the bottom of my heart. Emily came over and comforted me. There were tears in her eyes as well. Sending Ridley to the facility resolved everything for the moment. The debts Ridley had accumulated on his own would now be his responsibility to repay. So far, he has been making regular monthly payments into Emily's account without issue, as the total amount was too large for a lump sum payment. It will undoubtedly take a long time before Ridley has repaid everything. This is all a matter of personal responsibility. I've been able to keep up with Ridley's situation through occasional updates from the facility staff. Initially, it seems Ridley attempted to escape whenever he saw an opportunity. However, the dedicated efforts of the facility's staff in educating him have led to him now leading a quiet life, following the daily routine. I can only hope that he truly reforms from the bottom of his heart. Emily has been living alone since then. Fortunately, her salary is sufficient, so she doesn't seem to be struggling financially. I deeply regret what happened and feel truly sorry for Emily. She might have faced significant life disruptions due to debts she had no part in. Just thinking about it makes me feel like I can never apologize enough to Emily. However, Emily doesn't seem to hold anything against me. In her view, Ridley is the one at fault, not me. Moreover, Emily still visits my home every few months, mainly for sightseeing purposes. The main focus, it seems, is on tourism. Every time they visit, they bring various gifts, share stories, and help with household chores. Even though our official in-law relationship has ended, our bond feels closer than ever. After Brian's passing and sending Ridley to the facility, Emily's visits have become a significant source of joy for me. Now, I look forward to her visits and live a peaceful life on my own.
While I was preparing dinner, I heard my husband's voice from the living room. "Hey." Then, the sound of our son running. It seemed he was talking to our son, but it wasn't clear. What's up?" I responded to the voice. Then my husband Evan replied, "Polly, turn off the TV. You left the remote on the floor, didn't you?" I said to Evan. "What? So it's my fault now?" That's how the argument between us started. Things escalated from there. My name is Emily. I'm 29, working part-time. My husband Evan works for a major company and is 5 years older than me. We met at a party organized by a friend. After dating for 2 years, we got married. Evan was a bit passive, but we seemed to get along peacefully and had a good connection. We were blessed with a child, a son named Polly, now 4 years old. I took maternity leave when Polly was born. but now I'm back to working full-time. Honestly, handling household chores after a full day of work is tough, but I persevered for Polly. His smile is what keeps me going. I pack up at work, say goodbye to my boss, and head home. Today, I got a bit late. I hurried to the car and drove to pick up Polly from daycare. After parking, I rushed to the daycare classroom and found Polly playing with his teacher. Seeing me, he came over with a smile. That melted away all my fatigue. I bid the teacher goodbye, and hand in hand with Polly, we smiled our way back to the car. Once home, the real rush begins. I have to start making dinner. Home at last! I open the door with Polly and find shoes scattered all around. I tidy them up and walk with Polly into the living room, where Evan is lying on the floor under the table watching TV. "You're home already?" "Yeah, just had meetings today," he replies without taking his eyes off the TV. I half sigh, half laugh at the sight of him. "Hey, did you do any housework?" No," he responds nonchalantly, prompting a sigh from me. "But you said the one who gets home first would do it." "There was nothing to do," I retort, a bit irritated. "Of course there is. What about the laundry drying in the bathroom?" "Oh, right." His clueless tone exasperates me. It's not just that. He keeps laughing at the TV. Hopeless, he's not listening. I start preparing dinner. Then I hear Evan shout, "Hey!" "Huh?" After a moment of silence, Polly starts crying. "What's wrong?" "Polly turned off the TV." He must have left the remote on the floor. If he left it on the floor, of course Polly would step on it. "What, so it's my fault?" Evan retorts, sounding annoyed. "Well, it can't be helped, right? No need to yell." "Whatever." Evan walks off to another room. Really? Who's the child here? I continue with dinner, unbothered. Finally, dinner's ready, and I go to call Evan. "Dinner's ready. Hey." No response. Is he ignoring me? That's what it seemed like. Then the door opens, and Evan comes out expressionless. He doesn't say a word to me. He just sits at the table and starts eating. "Here we go again," I mutter to myself. Evan has this habit. When he's upset, he ignores people. It's really tiresome. I've been turning a blind eye, but it's honestly draining. I know it won't end unless I make the first move. Evan's just like that. Unaware, our son Polly says, "Let's eat." He starts eating the curry I made. "Curry's yummy," he says with a smile. It is, isn't it? I can't help but smile back. "Hey, Daddy." Polly tries to talk to Evan. Evan doesn't respond at all. Unbelievably, he's even ignoring our son Polly. I'm irritated, but don't want to fight in front of Polly, so I hold back. Daddy's just thinking about work right now. "That's right." Polly starts eating again, seemingly unbothered. "There's more if you want seconds." "Okay." Watching Polly's carefree smile is reassuring. I wonder if Evan remembers our plan to go to the aquarium the day after tomorrow. I'm really worried about it, but since we can't talk, there's no way to confirm. Feeling anxious, I decided to go to bed, as I was tired today. But the next day, Evan continued to ignore me. In the morning, he got up and left the room without a word, passing by me with a blank face. The air was tense from the start. It was a terrible morning. The situation always drags on. I could apologize to make him feel better, but I don't think I did anything wrong this time. I can't bring myself to apologize for something like that. It's unreasonable to take it out on Polly, even if it's his own fault. If I apologize now, I'll just end up bottling up my stress until I explode. Then Polly ran up and hugged Evan. And Evan said, "You stink. Don't talk to me." "Stink? Who does?" "It's Polly. He's had an accident again." I thought it couldn't be true since Polly sleeps with me, but there was a smell. "Oh, when did this happen?" I changed Polly's clothes. But Evan shouting at Polly showed he was still in a bad mood. Evan rarely shouts, so I knew this wasn't a good sign. Evan got dressed and left for work. Tomorrow is the day we promised to go to the aquarium as a family. I tried to forget about Evan's mood and prepared for the aquarium trip. I wondered when Evan would come home today. That's what I was thinking. I decided to use the shark backpack with a zipper we bought at the aquarium last time for Polly's bag. This is your bag, Polly. Yay, it's cool. Polly's smile with the backpack on his back made me smile too. We were happily preparing. Still, there was no word from Evan. As night fell, he neither called nor came home. Let's eat dinner, Polly. Daddy won't be back for a while. Okay. We ate dinner without Evan. Tomorrow is aquarium day, Polly said with a smile. Yes, it is, I smiled back. Honestly, I didn't know what to do anymore, so I decided we'd go out, just the two of us. Polly, let's go to the aquarium, just us tomorrow. What about Daddy? Polly looked puzzled. Daddy seems to be busy with work. Oh, I see. Okay. With no contact from Evan, I couldn't wait any longer and decided it was best to just go the two of us. Besides, I didn't even know if he remembered our promise, so I made up my mind to go alone. I didn't want to go out with someone who ignored me. It would be fun with just the two of us, I thought. Daddy's mad about something, huh? Polly seemed to sense something. Really, I don't understand. Maybe he's just tired. Let's just go by ourselves tomorrow. Yeah, I'm excited. Polly seemed happy, and I felt a bit relieved. We finished dinner and we were getting ready for bed when a message came on my phone. 1 penny per character. I was taken aback. It was a message from Evan. 1 penny per character? I didn't understand, but replied, What are you talking about? By the way, Polly and I are going to the aquarium alone tomorrow. Then he replied, 25 characters, 25 cents. Can that be settled in dollar increments? I felt my face get hot with anger. Then a shocking photo followed. A picture of Evan with 2 men and 3 women. I was at a loss for words. A party? Then another message came. I'm coming home now. Coming home? I thought. The door opened. I stepped out in my pajamas to see Evan. He staggered into the living room and fell asleep on the sofa. My anger was beyond control. I felt I had reached my limit. Despite telling him about the aquarium tomorrow, he was out drinking with a woman without any contact. I couldn't contain my anger as I thought about it. I decided to leave this house. That's what I decided. I couldn't believe he asked for money and then sent a picture from a party. It felt almost like infidelity. That's what I thought. I left Evan as he was and went to my room to pack my things. After packing, I called my friend Wendy, who lives on the floor below. Sorry, can I stay over tonight? Now? At this hour? Wendy sounded a bit perplexed. It's okay though. Thank you. I carefully wrapped sleeping Polly in a blanket, grabbed our things for tomorrow, and left the room. I glanced at Evan and saw a shocking sight. For some reason, I took a photo of it. Then carrying Polly, I quietly opened and closed the door to avoid making noise. I went downstairs and rang Wendy's doorbell. Wendy looked surprised when she opened the door. What happened? Sorry, a lot has happened. Can Polly sleep first? Wendy laid out a futon in one of the rooms for Polly. What's going on? Tell me. I told her about Evan always ignoring me, asking for money and sending a party photo. A party? Yeah, it makes no sense, right? I was confused as I talked. It really doesn't. Wendy looked puzzled. I feel like having a drink. I can't sleep, but tomorrow I'm going to the aquarium with Polly, so just one. Going to the aquarium? Okay, I understand. Wendy got a beer from the fridge and opened it for me. Thanks. Sure. I drank 1 can and fell asleep while venting. Wendy woke me up early in the morning. She had covered me with a blanket and let me sleep on the futon after I had fallen asleep. Sorry, I didn't realize I had fallen asleep. Thanks for the futon. I felt well rested. Maybe because I got all my complaints out. Hey, can I use your shower? Of course. I quickly showered and changed into the clothes I brought. I glanced at the clock. It was about time for Polly to wake up, so I hurried. After getting dressed, Polly woke up. He was surprised at first, but then smiled when he saw Wendy. Hey, it's Wendy. Long time no see, Polly. Their conversation was comforting. I can go to the aquarium with you and your mom today. Wendy gave me a knowing look. Really? Yay! I felt relieved that Wendy would be joining us. We got ready and arrived at the aquarium. Polly was very excited. Polly and Wendy ran ahead into the aquarium. Having Wendy there was truly a relief. She took care of Polly, allowing me to just watch them from behind. At the interactive section, Polly and Wendy laughed and had fun. After this section, Polly ran off to a tank. I said to Wendy, "Thank you, Wendy." Seeing my expression, Wendy replied, "It must have been tough. Don't worry, I'm having fun." Her words made my emotions swell up. Yes, I had been through a lot. Tears welled up in my eyes. The date was wonderful. It felt like the first free day in a long time. We had a great day, forgetting about reality. We ate lunch at the aquarium, had dinner on the way back, and returned to Wendy's place. Polly fell asleep immediately. He must have been exhausted. That night we stayed at Wendy's place again. Sorry for the staying again. Sure, that's fine. I was really grateful to Wendy. Then how about we try the new drink at the cafe tomorrow? Oh, they have a new one? I hadn't enjoyed a cafe visit in a while. Yeah, I've tried it once. It's delicious. Wow, let's go. In this comfortable space, I had completely forgotten about Evan. The next morning, the three of us went to the cafe, ordered the new drink, and had a pleasant chat. Polly couldn't sit still for long, so we soon headed back to Wendy's place. I realized I could have fun even without Evan. That's what I was thinking. While eating cookies at Wendy's, the doorbell rang. Who could it be? Evan, maybe? I felt a bit tense. I'll check, I told Wendy, and looked at the doorbell camera. As expected, Evan was standing there. I slowly opened the door. Evan was standing there arrogantly and screamed at me. So, you were here after all. Don't just leave without saying anything. He was furious. Are you kidding me? No food at home, and I can't reach you on your phone. He was ranting with an angry expression. His words about the phone made me furious. Why would I reply when you're talking nonsense like charging a penny per character? I faced Evan squarely and said, "It's not my fault. Why are you acting like the victim?" Evan looked around, surprised. I had blocked all notifications from Evan. I even set my phone not to ring for his calls. I had completely forgotten about him while having fun with Wendy. Hearing the commotion, Wendy came out. I gestured to her that I was okay and tried to keep her from coming closer. But I could feel Wendy's presence behind me. I told Evan, "It's your fault, isn't it? You blame Polly for your mistakes, and when I pointed out, you start ignoring me." Evan looked at me astonished. "And then, the first thing you say after all this time is about charging per character. Don't joke around." Evan started to argue. "That's because you get mad over unreasonable things." "Who's being unreasonable? Of course Polly will step on a remote if you leave it on the floor." Evan started to quiet down. "And ignoring Polly too? Unbelievable." "Because Polly turned off the TV." I felt my face getting hot. "So how many times do I have to tell you? It's your fault, and you ignored him because he turned it off." I was speaking with intense emotion. "Don't be absurd. How old do you think Polly is?" Evan, overwhelmed by my accusations, had nothing to say. "Who's the child here? Ignoring someone when you don't like something? And this, what about this picture?" "Picture?" I took out my phone and showed Evan the party picture. What's this?" Evan looked pale. "That guy sent it, didn't he?" Later I found out it wasn't Evan who sent the picture, but one of his friends. It was an unfortunate picture for Evan, undoubtedly. "What's this all about?" "I'm sorry." I demanded an answer. "Sorry?" I made up my mind, and told Evan, "I'm divorcing you. I can't deal with you anymore." No, that's an overreaction." Evan was shocked and panicky. "This is infidelity. I can't stay with someone like that." "It's not infidelity. That's exaggerating." Evan was in a state of shock. "And look at this." I showed another photo on my phone. It was a picture of Evan sleeping in the living room after he returned home nonchalantly following the party picture. Incredibly, Evan had wet himself. I had captured this shocking moment in the photo. I showed Wendy the photo. "Oh." Wendy looked bewildered. "Hey, stop it. Stop it." Evan was panicking. "Also, maybe it's just me, but the other day when you yelled at Polly for smelling..." That was you, wasn't it? Evan looked caught off guard. What? That day, Evan had woke up staggering. I found a lot of alcohol cans in the room and realized he'd been drinking heavily. And probably he was the one who had an accident, not Polly. Polly hadn't wet himself that day. I sighed when I told Wendy. I don't think I can be with him anymore, Wendy. Uh-oh? Evan was stuttering, unable to find words. Then Polly came over. Daddy? Hey, Polly. As Polly approached innocently. Polly, let's go wash your face first. Wendy took him away. Evan started. I'm sorry. I'm tired from work and everything. I apologize. That party picture, that wasn't me. I didn't know anything about it. He was clearly lying. Not you? That's different. Really. I'm sorry for ignoring you. And the money thing. Evan, begging, began to cry in front of me. I'll say it again. I can't do this anymore. Please. Let's divorce. Goodbye. I slammed the door. I ignored Evan shouting outside. It faded away, and everything was quiet. I felt so relieved after saying what I wanted. Back in the room. Are you okay with that? Wendy asked. Yes, I feel relieved. That's good then. Later, the divorce was finalized through a lawyer. I heard Evan had boasted. I have my wife under my thumb. She loves me so much, she won't mind this photo. At the party, his friends tried to stop him, but he was too drunk. The rumor of our divorce spread in his company, and everyone seemed to agree it was justified. Poor man. He must be uncomfortable at work. Well, it's only natural for ignoring someone for such a reason. He always made me feel lonely. No one would understand such behavior. I was worried about managing alone with Polly after the divorce. But now my parents come over and help. They visit almost every day, which is a big relief. My parents say, we enjoy it, so it's fine. Polly is happy being with them, always smiling. Leaving him was the right choice. I couldn't relax with him around. Felt like I wasn't even home. Honestly, his ignoring had happened before. I had reached my limit. Deciding to divorce was the right decision. Life is manageable now. I'm determined to do my best for Polly's smile. With that resolve, I head to work with a smile.
What's with this awful food? Don't stress out a pregnant woman. My son's wife yells at me. Then my usually mild-mannered and kind husband suddenly stood up, and he took away the meal. Never come back here again. Excuse me? My son's wife just froze on the spot. Too bad, Lily. Olivia, what do you mean? I looked down on my son's wife from above. A person who can't cherish their family is not fit to be my son's wife. My son's wife, always so full of confidence, now had an unusually troubled look on her face. This is the end. My name is Olivia. I'm 70 years old. This year marks the 40th anniversary of my marriage to my husband, Nicholas. Time flies faster than one would think. We met as classmates in college. He was always calm and gentle, and I was attracted to him from the start. But in our time, arranged marriages were the norm. Only a few could be with one they loved. So I kept my feelings for him a secret. I thought it would be a bother if he knew. But by the second half of our college life, rumors somehow spread that I liked him. I quickly realized it was because I had confided in a classmate. What will I do if he finds out? Not long after, my husband called me. Will you go out with me? For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. I never imagined the kind-hearted Nicholas, who was nice to everyone, would notice me. Besides, I thought he'd be arranged to meet some lovely young lady. But it was all a misunderstanding. I won't have an arranged marriage. I want to be with you, Olivia. His words marked the beginning of our relationship. Even as a couple, he treated me just as he did when we were friends. He was so thoughtful that he even gifted me trips on my birthdays. Am I really worthy of this much happiness? I was grateful to the classmate who shared my feelings. For the first time, I realized how wonderful it was to be with someone who reciprocated my love. We got married when we both turned 30. Our wedding was attended by all our college friends. Being blessed by everyone, I felt like the happiest person in the world. Our marriage continued smoothly, and our son William was born. He was an only child. My husband and I raised him with all our love. He was my only child, and I wanted him to grow up to be as kind as his father. Eventually, William grew up just as I had hoped. He became a gentle, considerate man, kind to everyone. Even as an adult and working professional, he continued living at home. At that time, most of his peers were living independently, which made me worry about his future. I hoped he would marry and have a happy family, but I wondered if he felt the same. Of course, if he preferred staying with us, that was fine too. I knew we had to respect his decisions. My husband, ever so kind, chose to watch and wait. It's William's choice. He didn't interfere much. William continued to live with us until he turned 40. He was serious about his work. On his days off, he prioritized family and always took care of us. Maybe it's fine to stay together as a family. I began to think that way. Just the three of us living peacefully might be enough. But then, my son made an announcement. I'm getting married. We were surprised by his sudden news. Congratulations! Thanks, Dad and Mom. I'll work hard to build a family like yours. Be happy. I wondered what kind of person my son's wife would be. I looked forward to meeting her. Her parents would also be there at the introduction. Finally, the day arrived. Nice to meet you. My son's wife's name was Lily. She was tall and had a cool demeanor. The in-laws, on the other hand, were both smiling and seemed kind. We're looking forward to being a family. They greeted us with a smile, making us smile too. I thought we could get along well with them. That's when it happened. William's parents are like grandparents, huh? My son's wife suddenly interjected. What are you saying? The in-law scolded my son's wife. Well, I just thought they'd be younger. Y'all are old too. Initially, it seemed the in-laws were older than us. So isn't that an inappropriate way to talk to parents who raised you? I struggled to contain my anger. My son and his wife decided to live together in an apartment. For the first time, I felt a sense of loneliness being apart from my son. But this is the happiness my son, now over 40, has finally found. I decided to quietly watch over him. That's what I thought. However, our peaceful life was soon to be disrupted. First, my husband seemed to take a liking to my son's wife. I was surprised he could like someone who spoke to us like that at our first meeting. When I asked him, "It's better to have someone who speaks their mind clearly," he said. I felt a bit bad, recalling how timid I was when we first met. I even wondered if he actually preferred someone assertive like my son's wife. But since they lived apart, I thought we wouldn't have to interact much. Hopefully they can live peacefully. We, the couple in our 70s, don't have time to worry in the remaining years of our lives. Though my son left home after getting married, he surprisingly returned home frequently. Initially, once a week, then gradually increasing to 2 or 3 times. At first, I was happy, as only my son returned. He would bring food and even help clean the house. Despite being busy with his own home, he cared for us, which was heartwarming. I was happy to have such a good son. But then one day, his wife started coming with him. She's family now, so I want Lily to get along with you, Mom and Dad. It seemed my son was considering us and his wife. My husband, who initially liked her, was pleased. But for me, it was somewhat annoying. I couldn't change my first impression of her disdainful attitude. My husband didn't seem to mind, but it always bothered me. My son was trying to connect us. I didn't want to dwell on it forever. And perhaps she might be a nice person after all. I waited for them that day. We're home, my son returned. But what his wife said next shocked me. Ew, it's dirty. Was she talking about the entrance? I was sure I had cleaned thoroughly. But was there something dirty? What's wrong? As I went to check, my son's wife said to me, William's house is always dirty, isn't it? Maybe because y'all are so old. It was clearly a jab at me. Our house is old, indeed. It's the house we built right after we got married, over 40 years ago. It's true that it has become older and dirtier over the years, But is it appropriate for her, my daughter-in-law, to say that to me? When I got married, I treated my mother-in-law as my own parent. Without her, my husband wouldn't have been born, and we wouldn't have met. Plus, she was very kind like my husband. I realized quickly that it was her upbringing that shaped my husband, so I respected her. But what about my son's wife? She doesn't treat me with the respect due to a mother-in-law and talks to me as if I'm a friend. I often hear that wives should be like friends nowadays, but something is different with her. She fundamentally lacks manners. It's rude to talk about age to someone you've just met, and she's too assertive towards us.
Your house is like a haunted house, huh?
Well, it's an old house. My son responded to his wife with a smile. He seemed unaware that he was being ridiculed. In crucial aspects, my son grew up to be oblivious. This might lead him to be completely under his wife's thumb. My fears were becoming a reality.
Could you get some coffee?
I'll prepare it right now.
Ew, this is terrible.
I'll get you another one. My son's wife thoroughly bossed me around. She acted as if it were her own home, not her in-laws. I appealed to my husband with my eyes, but he didn't even glance my way. My son's wife complained about the coffee I served. Did I replace it 5 times? Not wanting to waste the coffee, I secretly transferred the replaced coffee into another container.
All right, this is passable.
Finally, my son's wife seemed satisfied, but not a single word of thanks. Am I just a servant? And despite me being treated like this, my son and husband don't even try to help. Both are enamored by my son's wife. It's frustrating how they both seem to like similar types of people. Even if she were my age, she's definitely not the type I'd want to be friends with.
We're going back to clean our house now.
After complaining for a while, my son's wife seemed content and finally left with my son. I was genuinely relieved they had gone. After they left, I thoroughly disinfected the cups and plates she used. I instinctively felt repulsed by my son's wife. I know I should get along with her since she's my son's wife, but instinctively, I don't want anything to do with her. I can't discuss this with my son or husband, since they both like her, so I discreetly disinfect everything she's touched, to ease my mind. That was the only way I could vent. My son and his wife continued to visit 2 or 3 times a week. Despite having a beautiful apartment, they mostly spent time at our house. Today she talked about her family.
I'm the middle of 3 sisters. Sick of parents who only dote on my elder and younger sister.
Most of it was complaints. Her elder and younger sisters went to good universities, but she, being the middle child, only graduated from a local junior college. She always seemed dissatisfied with her parents favoring her siblings. But I think they loved Lily too. My son tried to reassure her. I agreed with him. If her parents didn't care for her, they wouldn't have smiled so warmly at our first meeting. When I shared this with her, she suddenly got angry.
I didn't ask for your opinion. Can you just be quiet?
I intended to be thoughtful, but it only made her uncomfortable. I really felt like nothing more than a servant, and being called you was particularly shocking. I realized she never called me Olivia since marrying my son. The thought of being just you to her felt empty. After venting her frustrations, she seemed satisfied and left. Then I meticulously cleaned the chair she sat in. As I polished the chair, tears started to flow from my eyes. Why do I have to endure this? What about me does my son's wife dislike? It's not just me. She behaves the same way towards my husband and son, and even her own parents. Does she have anyone she can open her heart to? I started to feel sorry for her, but remembering what she does, I couldn't help but be angry. I honestly didn't want to associate with a wife who treats our family like servants and calls us you. However, the frequency of their visits increased, and they eventually spent every weekend at our house. No matter how badly my son's wife behaved, my son and husband just laughed it off. Like my husband, my son grew to be oblivious. Their kindness is great, but it can be exploited by the wrong people. For the first time, I was angry at my son and my husband. One day, we received news that my son's wife was pregnant. Though it should have been happy news, I had mixed feelings.
We need to go shopping for clothes.
Yes.
What would be a good gift?
My husband was overjoyed about the arrival of his first grandchild. Every time we went shopping, he would stop at the baby section to buy something. Thinking of it as my son's wife's child, I couldn't genuinely feel happy. I always worried if the child would grow up to be mean and domineering. I couldn't voice such thoughts, so I silently accompanied my husband on his gift selections, and I continued to treat my son and his wife with the utmost hospitality when they visited. I just wish they could be a bit quieter. It's not a party hall. I felt increasing irritation towards my still domineering son's wife and my inability to be genuinely happy about the grandchild. Then an incident occurred. Olivia suddenly came to our house to give birth. Of course, I hadn't heard anything about this. My son was carrying a lot of his wife's luggage. Pregnant women need to eat nutritious food. In the sudden turn of events, I prepared a meal using what I had. It turned out delicious. I then took it to my son's wife. She still had a stern expression as she tasted the food.
Ugh!
She spat out the food immediately.
What's this awful food? Don't stress out a pregnant woman.
I didn't mean to. I was shocked to be spoken to like that, even though my cooking didn't suit her taste. I had tried my best, considering she was close to giving birth, but then an unexpected person appeared. My usually gentle and kind husband suddenly stood up and took away the dishes. What happened? I was surprised by my husband's sudden action. He looked coldly at my son's wife and said,
Never come back here.
My son's wife was stunned. She probably never expected to be spoken to like that. My husband had always been very kind to her. She must have completely trusted that he was on her side.
You mean me? Never come back?
She timidly asked my husband.
That's right. I won't tolerate anyone who looks down on my wife.
What?
My son's wife was defiant.
You're on my side, right?
She addressed my husband as you as well. I was utterly disgusted by her attitude. Enough already, I yelled, and then the doorbell rang. Who could it be at this time? It turned out to be my son's wife's parents. We're sorry for the sudden visit. Her in-laws had come unexpectedly. They looked dismayed seeing her. So you were here.
Why are you here?
My son's wife was still defiant. We came to take you back.
What?
I explained everything to the in-laws. Surprisingly, they didn't even know about the pregnancy. We're sorry. She hasn't contacted us since the marriage. She hadn't reached out to them even once after getting married. They must have been quite upset. Her parents seemed regretful, admitting they might have favored the other sisters. It's true, we may have paid more attention to her sisters. That's exactly what my son's wife had said. I had heard that middle children sometimes become twisted or strong-willed, but I didn't expect it to be this extreme. Her in-laws then said to me, We want to take responsibility as her parents. They seemed like such kind and considerate people. It was a shame.
Why did you tell them everything?
My son's wife looked at me coldly. I used to think her sharp eyes were cool, but now they seemed only to look down on others. You need to leave this house, I said to her.
What are you talking about? I'm the wife of this house.
As expected, she objected, but I couldn't back down if I wanted to get rid of her. What do you mean? That's when the in-laws produced something. At first I was confused, but then I realized it was a listening device. They played it, and it was a recording from inside their apartment.
All that family is so useless, completely under my control. How stupid.
It was a device they had secretly placed in my son's apartment. The voice was of my son's wife talking to a friend on the phone.
Well, after the baby's born, I can use that as a reason to divorce and claim alimony. Reason? Anything will do with those people.
My husband and son were at a loss for words. I was speechless too. I couldn't believe she had been mocking our family like this. Of course, her parents were silent too. You really underestimated our family. I looked down on my son's wife as she crumbled. Too bad, Lily.
Olivia, what do you mean?
Doesn't she realize what she's done? I looked down at my son's wife. A person who can't cherish their family doesn't belong in ours. Until now, my son's wife had been brimming with confidence, but now her complexion was the worst I'd ever seen. This is the end.
Lily, let's go.
The father-in-law, who had been so cheerful when we first met, now had a demonic expression.
So why do I have to leave?
My son's wife was visibly shaken. Hearing what was on that listening device, I'm at a loss for words. I never thought she was this kind of person. We're going home now.
Wait, I'm already married.
She resisted and didn't move. I was angered by her attitude. Then he spoke back to his son's wife. Don't you even appreciate being raised? I understand that you felt lonely because your parents paid more attention to your elder and your younger sisters. I slammed the table. But they still came to see you. They've always been worried about you. My son's wife moved, as if surprised. You repay kindness with ingratitude? Don't just hold grudges. Make some effort yourself. She had always been a self-centered queen, never making any effort. Perhaps she was too caught up in her childhood memories to see the current situation.
Please forgive me, Olivia.
My son's wife apologized again, but it was too late. I never thought I had such a wife. Get out. My husband was also angry. The in-laws pulled away the crying wife and left the house. Don't ever come near my family again! I screamed louder than I ever had before. Finally, the battle was over. After screaming, I collapsed to the ground, exhausted. It might have been the accumulation of all the fatigue, but my heart felt clear. My son and his wife eventually divorced. After discussions with the in-laws, my son took custody of the child. It would be a pity for the child to be raised by her. My first grandchild resembled my son, and I was very relieved. The smile the child sometimes showed was just like my son's. I couldn't talk back. My husband and son apologized to me later. They were initially shocked by her escalating behavior and lacked the courage to fight back, and they were afraid of her retaliation, so they took it out on me. Don't get involved with strange people again. When I said this, they looked guilty, but later laughed, perhaps realizing they had indeed been caught up with a strange person. My sweet grandchild, my kind husband and son, now we're living peacefully as a family of 4. I've come to realize again how much I love spending time with my family. I want to enjoy today peacefully, looking forward to my grandchild's growth.
My name is Evelyn, a 28-year-old office worker. I've been dating Andrew for 2 years, and he recently proposed to me. Andrew is 30 years old and works at a regional bank. His dad also works at the same bank and is branch manager. I met Andrew through a friend's introduction. He might seem a bit unreliable at times, but he's a kind person. I like that he's not the type to forcefully lead me. I've always struggled with people who don't listen to others and just pull you along in their direction. Maybe I prefer someone like him because my dad also listens to others and respects their opinions. I lost my mom about 10 years ago and have been living with my dad since then. My mom had always been frail, but her health worsened after I graduated from elementary school, leading to repeated hospital admissions. My mom had a weak heart, and I only remember her as always lying down. My dad, while running his company, took care of my mom and also looked after me. From my upper elementary school years, I started helping with cooking and taking care of my mom. I've been doing it since I was little, so I never thought it was too hard. Evelyn, I've always put you through a lot. My dad would always say, I don't mind at all. I would reply, to which my dad always seemed apologetic. Then, when I was in my senior year of high school, my mom passed away, and my dad's grief was immense. It made me realize how deeply he loved her. I thought it would be nice to marry someone who would care about me as much as he did. Andrew, whom I met through a friend, somehow reminded me of my dad, and I quickly fell for him. I knew he worked at a bank, but I didn't know his dad was also a banker, and a branch manager at that. My dad runs a small company, so he has dealings with banks, but probably not with branch managers. I even thought about joining my dad's company when I graduated from college. "Can I work at your company, Dad?" I asked casually, but he answered seriously. "We can't have you here, because being family might lead to favoritism," he said firmly. Indeed, my dad as an employer would have to be careful around me, and the other employees might struggle with how to treat me. So, I didn't end up working at my dad's company. After accepting Andrew's proposal, I was set to meet his parents. I had already told my dad about planning to marry Andrew. "Congratulations! I'm sure your mom would be happy," my dad said, almost in tears. After meeting his parents, "I'll introduce him to you, Dad." "If you love him, I won't say anything," he assured me. On the day I was to meet Andrew's parents, my dad, seeing me nervous, said, "Just be yourself. Pretending to be someone you're not gets exposed quickly." "Have you ever pretended, Dad?" I asked curiously. "When I met your mom's parents, I tried using formal language I never use, and they saw right through it," he shared with a laugh. Thanks to my dad's story, my nerves eased a bit, and I left home more relaxed. When we arrived at Andrew's house, his parents greeted us. "Thank you for coming all this way." "Don't be nervous, we just want to talk," they added, surprisingly casual. It felt like I was a job applicant. Even though I looked to Andrew for help, he just played dumb. In the guest room, I handed the gift I brought to Andrew's mom. "It's just a small thing from a famous local bakery." It was a specialty of a famous candy shop in the neighborhood. "I've never seen this before. Such a trivial item indeed," she said, throwing the box carelessly. I was more shocked at how she mistreated food than how she treated my gift. As I was reeling from her actions, Andrew's dad asked, "Evelyn, was it? Where do you work?" It felt more like an interrogation than a conversation. Before I could even greet them, Andrew's dad bombarded me with questions. "I work at Stellar Tech Solutions," I replied as cheerfully as I could. "Ah, Stellar Tech Solutions. Do we have any business with them at our bank?" "My company is a large corporation, so we don't really deal with his regional bank." "What does your dad do?" "He runs a small business." My dad's business isn't that small, but I downplayed it. "So he's like a self-employed person," Andrew's dad concluded on his own. I wanted to correct him, but I didn't want to come off as disrespectful. Perhaps he thought he couldn't criticize me for working at a large company, but felt free to comment on my dad's smaller business. "Was your mom a homemaker?" Andrew's mom asked, pouring coffee. "She passed away about 10 years ago. I've been living with my dad since then." Andrew's parents seemed taken aback by this. "So it's been just the two of you?" Faced with the insistent questioning of Andrew's parents, "Yes, it's just been my dad and me," I answered clearly. Even though it's a father-daughter household, I was already working, and I was 18 when my mom passed away. I don't have the image of a struggling dad with a young child. It must have been hard without a mom, right? Life gets messy, doesn't it? No, I was already grown up, so it was okay. Unhappy with my response, Andrew's parents grimaced. I regretted being honest. They seemed to look down on father-daughter households. "Did you use scholarship to attend university?" The conversation shifted unexpectedly. "No, my dad paid for my tuition normally." I spoke the truth, but Andrew's dad seemed skeptical. It's though to keep paying back scholarships after marriage. Many people are still doing it. He seemed to assume I had scholarship debt. How much do you have to pay back? He had convinced himself that I borrowed a scholarship. I didn't borrow any scholarship, so I don't have to repay anything. I was surprised that someone like him, who hardly listens, could be a branch manager. But it wasn't just him. Andrew's mom also had strong misconceptions. Struggling in a father-daughter household and having to repay a scholarship, she said pityingly. Planning to pay it all off quickly once you marry Andrew, right? She accused with a mean look. Looking to Andrew for support, he just nodded along with his mom. Left with no one to help, I had to fend for myself. There's no scholarship repayment, so don't worry, I insisted, clearly annoying them. Growing up in a father-daughter household, you can't listen to others, can you? Poor thing. Their prejudice against father-daughter households was frightening. Your dad might be in debt too. Andrew's dad speculated wildly. Rather than an assumption, it's more like a fantasy habit. It's tough for self-employed businesses these days. If he runs away in debt, it's a big problem for the bank. Once you marry Andrew, you might force our bank to lend you money. In their minds, they had concocted an elaborate story. We don't have any dealings now, but I'll remember the name and make sure not to lend. Andrew's dad said with a disturbing resolve. I had already given up on marrying Andrew by this point. More than given up, it was clear I couldn't live with these people. I felt embarrassed for ever thinking Andrew was like my dad. My dad was nothing like this heartless man. A daughter from a father-daughter household, self-employed with debt, is not a suitable match for Andrew. Andrew's mom yelled. I checked Andrew's reaction. He seemed to agree, nodding again. Disgusted, I realized Andrew's dad was boasting. There are many women who approach us for our status. Marrying rich is a shortcut to wealth, he said smugly. Seeing him boast while I was being insulted and Andrew not defending me, I lost all affection for him. The interview-like atmosphere I felt when I first came was accurate. This wasn't a meet-the-parents visit, but an interview to check if I was a suitable match for their son. It was an unfair interview, designed for them to feel superior. I realized I had come to a terrible place. In a way, it was good. Becoming family with these people unknowingly would have been awful. Though it was unpleasant, I was close to marrying into this. Still wanting to belittle me, Andrew's parents weren't done. But I wasn't that naive. It seems I failed your interview, so I'll take my leave. Leaving these words behind, I left Andrew and his parents and walked out of his house. Andrew didn't come after me, marking the end of our relationship. Seeing my strained face upon returning home, my dad asked, "Are you okay? What happened?" Though I had put on a brave face leaving Andrew's home, seeing my dad made all my tension unravel. I burst into tears and clung to him. Without a word, my dad just waited for me to stop crying. "I won't be marrying him," I confessed. Dad wasn't surprised, having guessed from my state that the marriage was off. "For the first time in my life, I was completely ridiculed by strangers." Crying so much washed away my sadness, leaving only anger towards Andrew and his parents. They looked down on us, saying it's pitiful to be in a father-daughter household, calling us poor. Dad just nodded silently as I vented. And they even assumed I had to repay scholarship for university and was marrying for that reason. Listening to my unceasing anger, Dad's brow furrowed. I was the only one venting my anger. But once I vented all my frustrations, I felt relieved. As if waiting for this, Dad finally spoke. There was no fate with Andrew, it seems. Indeed, there was no destiny with him. The words of his parents hurt, but I was most angered by Andrew, who didn't stand up for me. By the way, which bank does Andrew work at? I told Dad the name of the bank and where Andrew's dad was a branch manager. Which branch manager is that? Looking at a business card Andrew had given me earlier, I answered Dad. My lovely daughter has been insulted. Maybe it's time for a little payback. Dad said with a meaningful smile. A week later on a holiday, we had an unexpected visit at our home. It was Andrew's dad. Sorry for the other day. What brings you here today? More sarcasm? I said through the intercom. Evelyn, is your dad home? May I speak with your dad, please? Taken aback by his unusually humble attitude, Dad said, Let him in. I have something to say too. With a slightly intimidating look, I let them into our house. Upon entering, Andrew and his dad immediately apologized. We're so sorry about the other day, Andrew's dad said, bowing deeply. Andrew apologized in the same manner. We can't afford to forget the company auditing our bank's accounts, Dad said, causing them to bow even lower. Please, can we keep this incident from the main branch? Confused, I asked Dad, who then explained what had happened. The day after I visited Andrew's house, Dad went to Andrew's dad's branch. The branch manager had exchanged business cards with Dad, but hadn't realized what my dad's company did. Panicked, another bank employee explained to the manager that Dad's company was auditing their bank. You are the branch manager? I came to thank you for yesterday. My daughter visited your house. Your daughter? Yesterday? Andrew's dad was confused, not realizing Dad was my father. I'm sorry for any rudeness my daughter may have caused, Dad said sarcastically. The other bank employees were flustered, not knowing how to handle the situation. The president of the accounting firm that spoke directly with the bank's executives had come to their branch, causing a stir. The branch manager is confused, even though he greets Dad politely, saying he shouldn't be rude. Although they welcomed Dad respectfully, the branch manager was perplexed. It seems my daughter might have been rude, but you were quite disrespectful too. I heard from her. We can end our dealings with your bank if that's what you prefer. What? Dad's command, meant as a joke, sent shockwaves through everyone, including the branch manager. Even Dad was surprised by the strong reaction. Dad hurried back home, and it turned out to be more effective than I had imagined. Andrew's dad hadn't realized until the end that my dad and the president of the accounting firm were the same person. My dad's company isn't well known generally, but seems to be a big player in its industry. Trying to give Andrew's dad a bit of shock, my dad visited him, causing quite a stir at the bank. The other bank employees were panicked and apparently urged Andrew's dad to apologize. Then, Andrew and his dad came together to apologize. You shouldn't be apologizing to me. You should be apologizing to my daughter first. I was surprised by the firm tone of my dad, which I had never heard before. Andrew and his dad seemed even more shocked, crawling on the floor. We are sorry for the other day. We were disrespectful and have reflected on it. I didn't say anything wrong, so we're good, right? Andrew said with a sarcastic smile, looking up at me. I'm mostly angry with you for not standing up for me. Faced with my glare, Andrew pressed his forehead back to the floor. He probably wanted to reconcile with me. I had many missed calls from him on my mobile phone. I hadn't noticed them because I blocked his number, but after they left, I saw how serious it was. It was a good opportunity for my payback. How does it feel to apologize deeply to the father-daughter household you mocked as poor? Neither Andrew nor his dad could respond. Give me my regards to Isabella, who always had snide remarks. The part about stopping the business was a joke, and I won't tell the main office, but please stay away from my daughter from now on. Dad spoke sternly again, and they could only keep apologizing, prostrated on the floor. By the time they left, Andrew's dad's forehead was red from bowing so much. Dad and I burst into laughter watching this. Mocked by us, Andrew and his dad shared a wry smile with each other. Their apology and my chance to talk back marked the definitive end of my relationship with Andrew. Later, I heard that Andrew's dad was demoted from his position as branch manager after the incident reached the main office. Andrew was transferred to a distant branch, seemingly ending his chances for advancement. I started dating someone new, introduced by a friend. I didn't want to experience the same pain, so I checked with him from the start. I'm from a father-daughter household. Is it okay? He looked puzzled but assured me it didn't matter. Do your parents have any prejudice against father-daughter households? He looked surprised again, but laughed and denied it. We've just started dating, but it feels like things might work out well with this new guy.